I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
You're very welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren. I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined by somebody who's really fascinated me for a number of years and how he's progressed in his photography journey. It's somebody that I've known for a number of years as well. So welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast, Dylan Madden. Dylan, how are you getting on, man?
I'm getting on great, Darren. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of what you do. Absolutely
Cheers,
delighted
man.
to be a guest on your show. So hello, everybody.
Thanks very much for coming on, Dylan. Like I alluded to, I know you a number of years. I mean, we worked together many years ago, and we'll probably get into that during the conversation as well. But, you do something, I think, which is quite interesting with photography. And I figured, our listeners, I think, would really enjoy the story and learn more about what you do on a daily basis for a living, I suppose. So, first and foremost, anyway, how are you getting on at the moment with this entire upside down world? We're almost out of it now in the whole COVID lockdown, but how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm getting on grand. I have two young kids that keep me very busy, and I have little bits of work trickling in here and there. So I can't complain. I have a nice house. I have a nice situation going on here. The weather's getting better, so everybody's healthy. My mum and dad are doing well. So yeah, listen, it's all good.
Good. And before we go any further, just let people know, who is Dylan Madden?
I am a commercial photographer. Well, I started off as a commercial photographer. I predominantly do web development and post-production now.
So when you say like post-production, you do retouching of images as well, yeah?
I do retouching of images, yeah. So I kind of specialize in, I do a lot of stuff, portraiture work, a lot of fashion editorials, actually. If anyone picks up a copy of Image magazine this month, there is an editorial that I did post-production work on for Barry McCall.
Very nice.
Styled by Sarah Rickard, and Billy Orr was the makeup artist. It was a cool job to work on. So we were down in British Bay. We got lovely weather, which was. I'm a digi op as well, so I'll be there on the day managing files, doing a little bit of post production, a bit of color grading on them, so the client can see what's happening. So it's kind of like, I'm not just doing the files as they come in. I'm actually there on the day a lot of the time anyway, because I work in house for Barry McCall. So
sweet.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting job. I get to meet loads of people, do loads of things, and then get to be really creative with color grades and just kind of adding different elements to shots and working along with other people that have been in the business for a long time as well, which is really good. It's a really good learning curve for someone that came out of college and didn't have that much of a notion about photography at the time, but over the last 7 years I've learned an awful lot, I can tell you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really looking forward to getting into the nuts and bolts really of, your day-to-day work, because the output that I've seen, I've really enjoyed, like I say, following along in your journey. I mean, it's excellent work. So yeah, well done on what you've achieved so far. And like I say, we'll get into what it actually will be short enough anyways it is. But before we even start on that, tell me, how did you get started in photography?
When I was 17 years of age, I started in Spectre Photo in the Sandyford Industrial Estate as an evening job. I was a film splicer. So I would, the long packets would come in with the rolls of film. I'd open it up, check it C41, which is a color process. And I would stick it into the machine, which would splice it onto another roll of film. And so you'd have 500 rolls together that would end up going through a processing chemicals. So that's how I really got into it.
Okay.
I used to get all my stuff developed for free, so I was snapping the whole time. My dad's friend gave me a Nikon 301 film camera, just messing around with that, exploring, taking snaps of whatever was happening on a day-to-day basis.
And what made you then decide to say, you know what, I kind of want to go and do this properly? You obviously had a flair for it. You obviously had an eye for taking the photos and such of that. And you obviously had worked in the processing lab as well. But what made you decide then to say, you know what, maybe I should do this right?
I went traveling, first of all, and then came back jobless, because I had been working in like kind of design end of things and large format printing before that. And when I came back, I was like, I think I'll actually give the photography a go. So I had a job interview with a commercial photographer in Dublin, and it didn't work out. So I said to myself, okay, feeling quite sorry for myself. I'm like, something's got to change. So I decided to put myself through college, and I did a BA in photographic media in Griffith College, which was 3 nights a week. Yeah, that went
For how long?
3 years. So
Okay.
that
Okay.
went really well, and I got on really well in the course and enjoyed not only the photography but the studio stuff, and I really enjoyed the computer side of things as well, like messing around in Photoshop and learning. I use InDesign quite a bit for my projects, so my design background came in quite well there. So I was able to put together some really nice projects. And when I left college, my lecturer put me in touch with another photographer who was looking for someone to help him to assist, and that was Barry. And I started working with Barry in 2013 and as an
Okay.
assistant. And after a year or so, I kind of progressed to doing post production in there because he needed someone full time to work on the
Hmm.
files, and it was something that I enjoyed and I was quite good at as well. So that's how I fell into the role of being a photo retoucher.
Okay. And tell me, what do you enjoy most about photography? I mean, taking the photo, let's just say, what do you enjoy most about that?
It didn't seem like a real job, which was something that was appealed to me quite a lot. You weren't stuck in an office at 9 to 5. You were working with creative people, which was a real eye opener for me.
Hmm.
Um, and when I was working, working with Barry was just great. Like we'd go on the DOS if it was a nice day. He had a dog. He had a sports car. We'd take the car. We'd go for a drive. We'd have the dog. We'd go for a bit of lunch. And I should say, my first job working as a photographer with Barry was the Chapter One book. So I was in and out of Michelin star restaurants, and getting to eat this food and meet these people. It was just crazy. It was
Mm,
like
mm, mm.
so.
Is like a dream come true to a certain extent, so because it's a job, but as you say, it didn't feel like a job, so you were having more fun and enjoying it. I think that probably made you more kind of relaxed and be more involved in it as well, because they always say if you find something that you love, you never have to work another day in your life. So with that in mind, I mean, you were passionate about photography, you had your skills that you learned in college, you're now working with a professional photographer, and you get to see all these things. So it probably was like, what does tomorrow have? Because as you say, in a normal job, it can be the same thing mundane, day in, day out. So every day could be different. And I think that's probably where you most found your enjoyment, and that's probably where you got good at it, I think, is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. Yeah, yeah, and just meeting people as well, and like I'm absolutely I love portrait photography. I absolutely love it. Like it just there's a rawness about it, and actually connecting with someone and getting that snap is like I've never experienced anything like that in photography.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I was lucky enough to win an award in college for news photographer of the year,
Nice.
with the medias, and I followed a lot of protests, and that was another aspect of photography that I loved as well, the spontaneity of something,
Hmm. Hmm.
catching something that was going to be gone in a split second,
Hmm.
and I think you can get that with portraiture people as well. There's a connection there
Hmm. Hmm.
that you get, or that you drive to get, or it's not the easiest thing in the world. And I was lucky to work with someone that's an absolute master at at portraits and drawing that out of people as well. So
Hmm.
that's the most fun thing for me about it, I think.
And thinking versus then versus now, what do you enjoy about photography now? I mean, aside from again, we'll get into the detail of the retouching and the editing in a moment, but like, do you still is that what still attracts you, which is the portraiture, the connection with people? Have you advanced that yourself? Is that still something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, it's just really diverse. You don't know where you're going to be from one day to the next. Like you really don't. I'm in cabin next week on a job. I was in a house today taking some snaps of a house for somebody.
Hmm.
Like you could wake up tomorrow and you could be flying out to New York to do a job.
Hmm.
Or last year I was not last year, sorry, the year before I was out in Santorini on a job. So you just never know what's coming your way, and that's what's really cool about it.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
it's also scary as well because you have to create something for someone. There's an expectation there. They want they want their product to look really cool, and you need to be constantly creative and pushing the boundaries, and that's got its own pressures as well. But it's generally lots of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you kind of hit on a couple of things there, because a camera can open so many doors. It can give you so many different experiences that without a camera, you'd never get the opportunity to do those. So, like, as you say, in the last year with the whole lockdown and COVID and such like that, that changes things completely for everybody. But you've already got the abilities, you've already got the connections, you've already got the contacts, you've already got the client base, let's just say. So like ye can go to somewhere that you know you're going to be, or you could be somewhere that you didn't know you were going to be. And I think, is that, do you enjoy the spontaneity of it, or do you enjoy the fact that you at least you got something to do and you won't ever be idle?
Yeah, no, the spontaneity is definitely, and the variety is definitely what keeps you loving it, because you're not knocking on the same door all the time. You're not doing the same thing over and over and over again. So you're constantly you're constantly learning new things. You're in different environments and you're meeting new people, and that's what I really do love about it. Taking the pictures and getting a great picture as well. Everybody knows who takes pictures. When you get that shot,
Mm-hmm.
how good it feels is like, oh, that is a kick-ass shot.
Mm.
And then you can add so much to it by different elements of post-production. Like, some people don't like post-production, they like the raw aspect of photography, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Other people like to like embellish the shot or heighten it or whatever. Other people like to add things in. So like there's so many different dimensions to the job.
Mm.
That for me, getting a shot or seeing a shot and then knowing what you want to add to it after you've
Yes.
taken it as well is another good thing. Like, I can all like I love shooting in daylight, especially people. Like Jane Bone. Have you ever know Jane Bone's work?
No.
She's got that. You'll know that she's a very famous shot of Samuel Beckett.
Okay. Yeah.
That you'll know.
Yeah.
Know.
Yeah.
So she's like a film photographer that just she practically shot everything in daylight.
Okay.
It's just like I just love it. Like I don't know if I can put it into words exactly.
But something that comes to mind here, and you mentioned there about doing portraiture and such like that. I mean, you take the photograph, right? So you're in control of the camera. The person is effectively there, but you're directing them to take the shot because you know what you want to achieve from the image. But you said something there which struck a chord with me, is that when you look at the image, you go, wow, when you got the banger of a shot, you nailed it. How about the reaction to the person that you're taking the photograph of? And they're looking in the back of the camera and they're like, wow, geez, is that me? I mean, is that something that, happens a lot? And is it something that you get a kick out of?
Yeah, it's brilliant when that happens, and that's actually the key to getting a good picture, is making somebody feel comfortable. And if you get that reaction from them, you've done your job. If they're looking at the back of the camera and going, "Wow, is that me?" And it's not as if it's not them. Like, you're not doing anything differently. It's well lit,
Mm-hmm.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
They've got like you've got the correct clothes on them,
Mm-hmm.
and the background is nice. But it's like, that in itself is you doing a very good job if you can get that reaction from somebody. So a lot of the time, people are very intimidated by big cameras and big lenses and big lights and studios. They like, most people do not feel comfortable in that situation. So if you can get them to feel comfortable, find a common ground with them, put them at ease, you're going to get that shot time and time again.
And you mentioned about shooting in daylight. Do you prefer shooting in daylight or studio light?
Well, in studio light, you can control it. You know exactly what you're going to get, and you can replicate it over and over and over again, which is fantastic. But with daylight, it just gives. I just think you just can get extra elements that you're not going to get in the studio. Or like the difference between having someone there and then swinging them around is huge. So if you find the right daylight, like a north light is key, or a doorway. If you get someone in a north facing doorway, nice flat lit, it's just, it's the best. And then you can do what you want in post production. And there's just skin tones and stuff like that. Or if you look at my Instagram feed, I've got a couple of I did a project on men's sheds, where I did quite a harsh contrasty treatment on them. But that was all shot. That was all shot in daylight. Just a bit of black velvet against the wall, wherever I met these guys. So just making sure they're out of direct sunlight, really.
And from my point of view, I'm a landscape photographer, as you know, and I mean, I pigeonhole myself all the time to say I'm only a landscape photographer. I don't take photographs of people and such like that. But if you're off out and you want to do a shoot, again, okay, natural light, daylight, north facing and such like that, would you have had many shoots over the years that you're shooting out in the landscape? Because the light is so dynamic. The light changes so often because you've got clouds that will give you highlights to deal with, or flat light, or whatever it may be. So how do you find shooting in the landscape as such, with the subject being a person? Is it challenging more so than enjoyable, or is it something that you say, you know what, I know I can do this, and this is what I need to do each time?
No, it's challenging, especially in Ireland. We have quite hard light,
Mm,
and as you know, the weather is very sporadic,
mm,
quite windy as well. So, but listen, it's you just got to work with what you have,
mm,
and you just got to whatever skills that you've are 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 whatever skills or experiences that you've gathered over the years will let you know how to get that shot
mm,
within that environment. So,
mm.
and as well, a couple of bits of kit will always help. Like if you've got some poly boards that you can put a surround around them, or if you've got those giant reflectors that you can use
Yeah,
to block the sunlight, or a huge brolly will often be used, a big huge white umbrella, just to stop direct sunlight
yeah,
hitting.
it's often the light. Yeah,
You don't want direct sunlight on people.
yeah,
It's too hard.
yeah, it's
They
often the light.
squint. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to use your experience to work within your environment to get the shot.
Mm,
So it depends on what the job is as well. Like what they're looking for. Like with fashion editorials, you can shoot in the hard light and the sunlight because it's an editorial. But if you're shooting for an e-commerce website and someone's got a lovely Aran jumper, you have to make sure the product looks the business.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're not doing your job right. Like
yeah.
they're paying you to sell their product or make their product look as good as it looks.
Mm,
So, but that being said, it's always a team effort. It's never just the photographer. There's the photographer. There's the clothes stylist. There's hair. There's makeup. Um, there's creative directors. It's not like when you're in situations like that, you're part of a team.
mm, mm.
Although the book will kind of stop you in relation to the shots, but everyone around you has a job to do. So, that helps you focus on what you need to get done as well.
And tell me, one other question, I suppose, on that. Do you prefer working with experienced models or new models, or people who aren't models at all, just the average person?
Listen, if you're working with a brilliant model, you're going to get brilliant shots. There, it's the difference between someone that's like if you're like you can get really good shots of someone that has a model before,
Hmm.
but it's a lot harder to get to that point. If you have someone that knows what they're doing, it just makes your job so much easier. Like so much easier. It's the same with hair and makeup as well, and styling. If you get people that are really really good at their job,
Hmm.
the shoot looks really really good.
Mm, mm,
It's all of the time. These things are a team effort. It's not just the photographer. Like when you're looking at a shot of Kate Moss shot by, I don't know, Mario Testino or whoever,
hmm,
Rankin, whoever, like there's a whole team of people behind the camera
hmm,
that make that shot
hmm,
look the way it looks. It's
hmm,
not just the photographer.
mm.
So there's a whole crew. That's why everyone gets credited, because it is really a team effort.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important as well, as you say. I mean, look, you've got, wardrobe, you've got makeup, right? You've got lighting, you've got the photographer, you've also, if it's a bigger picture and you've got to do a job for somebody, you've got to get a certain look and feel out of that. So I presume you have to make sure you're cognizant to that before you even take the image. Because as you say, and I mean, we'll touch on it in a moment about the whole retouching side of things, but it's important to get it right in the camera in the first instance, so that you know that you have the tools and the assets to be able to work with when it comes into the retouching as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. If you don't get the foundations of a house right, it's going to fall down. So
Yeah.
that's probably the easiest way to think of it.
Yes. So, you mentioned there a second ago, I suppose, and how you kind of got started as a retoucher, but I kind of want to expand on that further, right? So, like you, when I know you years ago, like I said, you always had an affinity with computers. You figured out things, and I was like, wow, how was he able to get this and such like that? But it's one thing to be able to take a photograph, and yes, I mean it's a challenge, and it's a great skill to have, to know that you can actually take the photograph. But you then had said, okay, I'm good at this on the computer, so I can make this image look a lot better. So you mentioned there, that there was an opportunity, he needed somebody full time. But tell me how you kind of got started in the whole photo editing anyway, before we even go into how you got started as a retoucher. But how did you get started in the whole photo editing? Because Photoshop can be quite intimidating for a lot of people. But for you, you kind of embraced it and you seem to have your head around it very, very quickly. So tell me how you kind of got into that side of it.
My dad won a copy of Photoshop 5 at a graphic design thing back in the 90s,
Wow.
and we had a Mac in the house. We had like I don't know, a G3 or like a Power Mac or something. I can't remember what it was. This must have been in 1998 maybe.
Okay.
I think it could be 97. So my dad was working as a graphic designer at the time for a company, and he had the computer there, he had the software there, and he brought me home a bunch of CDs with stock images on them. At that time, you know, you couldn't get stock images on the internet. It was dial up. If you wanted to listen to a song, it would take 20-30 minutes to download
a 3.5 meg file. Yeah.
So I had a load of CD-ROMs with some high-res images. So I used to cut out like seagulls and elephants and just drop them into different things and just see what I could do. Well, back then Photoshop was very limited. I don't even know if they had history states. I can't remember. But yeah, it was just I was just fascinated by the fact that you could actually do this,
Mm-hmm.
and that was suppose how I started. And then yeah, when I was working in the studio, it was part of the job was to assist on the day and be on the shoots, but you also had to like manage the files and do stuff like that. Like, so the previous guy that had my job was able to do both things.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to do post production, and he was able to do assisting. So Barry had kind of, when he was hiring someone, he had asked, look, do you have any experience with Photoshop? Can you do
Mm-hmm.
this? And I was like, yeah, no, I can do both of those things. So just kind of started off as a role in the middle, doing a bit of this and a bit of that, and it just progressed over to doing the post production and the things, really.
Class, you know, I mean, it's always interesting to find out how somebody lands in a role. I mean, you know, even just to recap even what you said here, even in the first part, you know, you always kind of took photographs when you were younger. Then you said, okay, I want to learn it properly. Then you were messing around with Photoshop, and then you got an opportunity to do it properly without messing around and practicing. You wouldn't have put yourself in that position. So, I mean, for anybody that's listening out there and thinks, oh, you know what, like this is impossible because I can't do this and I can't do that. I mean, the very nature of starting something and doing it as a practice, it does help you. And you're living proof of that, you know?
100%. Like you could find yourself in a position in 5 years' time where someone's going, hey, I need you to do this job, but if you can do this, it would help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's also how I got into doing websites as well. When I was working in the studio, they needed 2 websites, one for the studio, one for the photographer. I was like, hey, I think I could probably do that. So I taught myself WordPress, and from there I started a web development company, and now I make websites for people as well. So,
class.
Yeah, you just don't know. And learning any software is good, because especially all the Adobes pretty much work in tandem with each other, or they're very similar. So if you understand how to use Photoshop, you'll pick up Illustrator. Or if you understand how to use Illustrator, you'll be able to use InDesign. So, you know, it's good method to learn the software.
So what you're saying basically is play around with the software, and then you might find that you've got a skill for it, and somebody will need that skill. And when they do need that skill, bang, you're there, you're ready, because you're not having to learn. You've already done it already. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you don't know it that well, you'll have a bit of confidence about you. You'll be able to say, hey, I've tried that, or I can do that, or, you know, I don't know exactly how to do that, but I bet you I could figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good thing, and it's good as well to keep the mind occupied and just work on creative things and figure stuff out. Yeah. See what you can make, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, in the whole lockdown period of time, a lot of people have upskilled themselves because they wanted to do something and keep the mind active, as you say. And I mean, you know, out of the very nature of being able to do something, it could open doors for you. So, I mean, I think, like I say, you're living proof in relation to doing that. And like, what I'm going to do, Dylan, is I'm going to take a very quick break and I'll come back, because I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of retouching, because I think it's a whole fascinating aspect of photography, and I'm really interested to see how you would approach retouching as well. So yeah, we'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Dylan, like I alluded to there in the first part, I'd like to discuss a bit further on the whole aspect of editing. So, to start us off with, really, from a listener's point of view, as a professional retoucher, as a professional photo editor, what advice would you give to somebody on editing?
Organized. Get as organized as you can. Folder structure is paramount. So any job I shoot or start to shoot, I have a folder template made on my computer, which pretty much has 6 or 7 folders in it. Download, edit, tests. Tests would be shots that we get up in the day to show the client. JPEG for edit. That'd be the watermark JPEG to send to clients. And then miscellaneous, and you might have video or something there. It depends on what you're doing. So that's the first thing. All the folders are dated. So today would be the 14th of the 4th, 21D underscore, I don't know, image editorial.
Yeah.
The file names will follow that exact same file structure. So you'll once you shoot everything gets put into a download folder.
Okay.
Then I use Adobe Bridge.
Okay.
To edit back the shots. So I use a numbering system 1 to 5 for rating stars, and then I use the color tag system as well.
Okay.
So normally a red tag for me would be the shots that I want to keep, and then once I've gotten all my red tags, I'll filter them in, and then I'll go through them again and knock out the ones that I don't want. And from there, I will I'll bring them into Lightroom and I'll watermark them and send them out as what we call screen resolution JPEGs. So like really low res JPEGs, 72 DPI by 1000 pixels or something like that, just for the client to look at. And then the client will come back with the date and the file number.
It's easy for you to find the file then as well, because you've got that file structure, as you say, set up. So even from that point of view, like it's important that you've got all your assets aligned correctly, so that you know that when you are working on them, you're not going to be losing them, you're not going to be finding them, you're not going to get confused with them. Because I know a lot of people, like even from a standard hobbyist photography point of view, wouldn't even consider how to have a proper file structure. I know many people out there that would get their SD card, pop it into the computer, and they'll start editing from the SD card. When in fact you should be editing from the computer, because you want to keep the RAWs there. Plus, as well, if you're editing from the SD card and you pop the SD card out, then the system is looking for that file on an SD card, which is no longer there as well. So by having
your first sorry to put in there, your first mistake is trusting an SD card to begin with, Darren. The minute you shoot stuff, it should be put onto an external hard drive and then onto another hard drive. Realistically, I would not trust an SD card to keep my stuff on. Never mind actually any edited work.
Have you had many SD cards fail?
I've had a couple fail. I've had a good few CF cards fail as well.
Wow.
I tend to buy my CF cards and SD cards directly off SanDisk now, or Western Digital. I used to get them off Amazon, but it's just not worth the risk. Just pay the extra money, have that peace of mind.
Why?
There's too many
fake.
There's too many counterfeits out there. You just don't know. You're just like they're not even that more expensive from the source. If you go onto Western Digital, you can buy your SanDisk cards if that's who you like. I've used Lexar before as well. I've had problems with them. I don't know what their new ones are like. But we shoot an awful lot of stuff as well, so the cards get hammered. Like the shutters get hammered on the cameras as well. Like I have a Canon 5D Mark IV at the moment, and there's well over 600,000 actuations on that shutter at the minute. So
wow, what's the life expectancy of that shutter? 250,000, is it?
They say that, yeah. They say that, like,
wow.
So it's not that expensive to get it replaced. It's about 350, 380, something like that, to get a new shutter in.
Okay.
So whoever you buy your camera off, you can drop it back to them and they'll send it out to Canon for you. So, we use ISS in Dublin, Image Supply Systems, or else we've used Cons and stuff before. So that's another reason why it's nice to buy off people in the shop where you can talk to, because you have that peace of mind that if something goes wrong, you can go in and go, hey, my camera's broken, and they'll give you a loan and they'll take the other one in and they'll get it repaired for you. So
and I suppose there's nothing worse than as well if you're on a high profile job and a card fails. I mean, you can't get those people back again. So, like, I shoot with an EOS R, and I don't care that it only has one SD card. But from your point of view, do you always have two cards in every camera?
Yeah, two cards. Yeah, one SD, one CF, shooting raw onto both.
Right.
If it's a big e-commerce job or something like that, where you're going to be shooting like 150 garments in a day, you could shoot high-res JPEGs because the output is going to be just for a web, so that's fine. So you can shoot raw and JPEG. But if it's something that's needed for print media or for billboard or something like that, I think I personally prefer to shoot raw onto both cards.
Yeah, better to be.
It slows. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, better to be safe. And tell me, what sort of projects have you worked on? So I know, like, you show me. I've seen a number of your images, and one image that you showed me actually only recently was an image of Keith Barry, and I think it was a phenomenal image that you had taken there. But like, what sort of projects have you worked on in your career so far?
Well, that was actually, sorry, that was Barry that shot that
Okay.
Keith Barry campaign. I did the post production.
Yeah, yeah, but you still worked on the project, so I mean, not necessarily.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. No, that was really cool actually. Keith's really, really nice to work with, and he's a very creative person as well, and he's got a lot of spontaneity about him. So he had to change his whole business as well because he was doing live gigs. So he's doing a lot of stuff over Zoom. So he came to Barry and to myself, and we were having conversations about, he had an idea. Normally people will send you reference images, or they'll explain something to you, and you'll put together like a mood board or a set of reference shots, and you go, I'd like to try something like this. So the idea for him was he wants to be coming out of the computer screen. So we shot an iMac on green screen, and then we put Keith in a similar position, and Barry shot him with like cards and like Zippo lighters and dye and a couple of different elements, and
interesting.
That was really nice to work on actually. So we got some cool looking almost like villain lair backgrounds from Shutterstock.
Nice.
And we photoshopped them in, or I photoshopped them in, and then just got him coming out the screen, put some lens flare in, and a couple of different other bits and bobs, nice color grading. So those shots are on Instagram for anyone who wants to see them. I think Keith Barry has them on his page.
Yeah,
I don't think I put them on my page yet.
Yeah, I know you showed me that image, I suppose, and that really struck me. But like, of the stuff that you've got published and such like that, then as well, what type of projects have you worked on other than that one?
Well, the last big one was before lockdown, because since the pandemic came in, things have been different. So the last big one I did was for Paddy Power.
Okay.
It was for Public House, who are an ad agency that were doing Paddy Power. So myself and Barry were out with Colin Meaney in Leopardstown Racecourse.
I remember seeing all the billboards. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really nice project to work on. So that was kind of like, we shot all the extras. Again, we actually hired a Fuji medium format camera for that.
Nice.
It's a GX something or other. It's a
X100
kit. Yeah.
GFX 100. Yeah, 100 megapixel images. Yeah.
Yeah, fucking insane. Excuse for my French.
That's okay. You're now get excited when you reach 100 megapixels. Yeah.
No, like, this thing has like eye tracking, autofocus.
Nice.
And yeah, just nuts. Brilliant camera to work with.
So you went out to Leopardstown Racecourse with Colin Meaney, and you took photographs of him there. Yeah.
Yeah, Barry was. I was digi up, and then we had another guy, Colin, who was doing assistant with us, and Barry was the photographer.
Okay.
So Colin came in, and on green screen he was. I don't know if anyone knows the ad. He was kind of wearing like a 3/4 length trench coat, I think.
Yeah.
And then there was a load of kind of, the Irish are coming to Cheltenham was the idea. So we had an Olympic speed walker, and then there was a couple of other like, there was some fans, Koi Big and all this other sort of stuff, and there was kind of Peaky Blinders type characters as well. So there was just a whole different array of characters. So I think maybe 30 people, 40 people. So basically, Barry shot all the stills of the different characters doing all their different moves, and then we shot some stills of the race course, and then we sourced some stock footage of the Cheltenham stands,
Nice.
and then I put it all together in Photoshop, and then I had to build like a Hollywood sign that said Paddy Power, because they actually have one in Cheltenham, a Hollywood style sign in Cheltenham.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah, it was pretty big. Again, I don't know. There could have been 200 layers on that file easily.
Wow.
So again, you really have to be organized with your layers. You have to name everything. You have to group stuff into folders. You have to color code things, because it can get out of hand fairly quickly.
And we'll go into your workflow in a minute, but I suppose you have to make sure that everything is graded the same as well then, because there's no point in having something that's warm in one image and cold in another image, because they're not going to gel in the whole cohesive image that you're trying to create in the end of it as well.
Yeah, that can happen. Most of the time when you shoot stuff in a studio style environment, everything will be the same color. So I'll take the raws into actually we use Capture Pro for that job. So you color balance everything before it's even shot. So your white balance is sorted, your exposures, your shadow details, your highlight details, everything is done before the first person even steps in.
Okay.
So that's one of the great things about using Capture is that it's versatile, and everything stays the same across the whole shoot. You're not like, if you're shooting on a Canon and someone comes in with a red coat,
yeah,
it's going to be one color, and then if someone comes in with a blue coat, it's going to be, that's if you have the white balance set to auto, of course. But like when you're using tethered software and you've preset everything up, it all comes in the same color. So we had a couple of instances on that job where we did have problems because we had to get some Peaky Blinder type characters off Shutterstock and a couple of other characters off Shutterstock that we didn't have access to on the day. So they would be graded up as close to as possible as the final thing. But once all the elements are put together in the image, the client will look at it and sign off on everything. And at that point, I grade everything.
Yeah,
so the grading is done at the very end, because that's what will tie the whole thing together. That's what will make it look like it's not just people dropped on. Obviously you've got your shadowing and shadows and shades and all that sort of stuff as well. But the overall grade for me is what ties the image together at the end.
So answer me this one, right? I know it's probably a difficult one to answer because, number one, we're not in the period of time where a normal, inverted commas, working day would be. But what would be your typical day? It can vary. I mean, I know, as you say, every day, every week can be different. But describe a typical day, I suppose, for somebody that's wondering, what is a professional retoucher? What's your typical day?
That is tough to describe, because every job varies. So I mentioned earlier on, I worked on a editorial for Image magazine, which was really nice to work on. Now there's another post-production job that I worked on recently, that is going to be in. Now this was originally done as a test shoot. For anyone that doesn't know what a test shoot is when people get together. It's like what people that aren't professionals might call a TOP. Is it time for portfolio, or TFP, time for portfolio, or whatever? So I'm not sure. So basically creative people come together and they do a shoot that they really want to do a shoot with. So there's no interference from anybody.
Okay.
It's okay.
Full
the stylist
creative
gets
freedom.
the clothes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Carte blanche. Just the stylist gets the clothes that they want to use. The model comes in because she wants to do something exciting for her book, or just to freshen things up. The photographer gets to light it and shoot it whatever way he wants. So Barry and Catherine Condell, who's a stylist, and myself were working with Talia Heffernan, who is a model. And she was like, "Hey, I would really love to do a project with you guys. That's like not a pay gig, test shoot." So Catherine's like, "I've got loads of really cool clothes from over the years." And Barry's like, "Yeah, we should do like a Peter Lindbergh style shoot." So we all got together in the studio. We had Aidan Darcy as well, who's a really fab hairdresser. He came aboard, and then Zoe Clark, who is she's a top notch makeup artist, like one of the best in the country. For fashion shoots and bridal and all that sort of stuff. So the team was assembled, and myself and Barry painted a couple of canvas backdrops last year.
Okay.
It's kind of like Vanity Fair style things. So yeah, we bopped up one of the canvas backdrops, and Barry shot the whole campaign, and like he said Peter Lindbergh, and I'm like, yes, okay, so black and white, let's do this. You never get to do black and whites for magazines because they always, I don't know why, they always, in Ireland anyway, they always want to print color. So yeah, so it was like black and white, and then it's like, oh yeah, we get to make it look like film as well. So like, you know, we're adding grain structure in, and you know, you can have deep shadows on the side of the face, and when you have a model like Talia, she can handle any sort of lighting as well. So you know, it was just a really, really lovely job to work on. And that should be out. I sent the files to the magazine the other day, so I think that'll be out in the next week or two, so people will get to have a look at that. And that's like a typical day's work, I suppose, because you're working with creative people. You're, you know, everyone has a job to do, and everyone wants their stuff to look. Everyone wants it to look really cool.
Yeah,
and especially that's the thing about editorials, fashion editorials, is you can be really creative with them. Like if you're working on a job for an e-commerce site or for e-commerce, it has a structure. It needs to look a certain way. But when you're able to break that mold, that's when you get the best out of people.
Absolutely.
That's when people get to do what they really love to do.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting as well. It's really exciting when you're in the studio and stuff like that. So,
yeah, no, I mean,
so the guys are all
that's a very good example, I suppose, because, you know, you might have a situation where you're pigeonholed into creating something, whereas that is, okay, what can we do here collective, like a hive mind? You know, you've got the makeup artist, the model, you know, you've got the wardrobe, you've got the photographer, and then you've got the editor as well, who also has a hand in playing what comes out in the final end of that. So, like I've kind of alluded to there a moment ago, what would your typical workflow be? So you've already said the most important part and tip from editing point of view is to have a file structure. So you've got your file structure done now. Now you're now bringing in your files to work on them. So what would your typical workflow be?
So yeah, my typical workflow is once the client's selected the files, I'll bring everything into Lightroom, and in Lightroom, I can do the color grade. I can do all the tonal adjustments and any color or exposure or highlights or lowlights or shadows or whatever needs to be adjusted. I'll do all of that in Lightroom.
Okay.
As an overall.
For every image.
Every image. So just get it up to a standard. Just get it up to a point.
Okay.
I love Lightroom. There's loads of stuff you can do in it, but it's quite limited when you need to hone in on aspects. So for an overall, getting the shots to an overall level, Lightroom, and then I'll export them as PSDs and then bring them into Photoshop. And from there, we'll start tackling different elements of the image. If the skin needs to be worked on, if there's any creases in the clothes that need to be fixed, if you want to, you know, add a vignette that you've got more control over that you can't do in Lightroom, or if you wanted to bring up an area of clothing just to isolate areas, do all that type of work. We sometimes use the liquify tool if it needs be, but I try to stay away from that type of thing. So yeah, that's basically it. Lightroom, then Photoshop, and in Photoshop, sky's the limit.
Okay. And I suppose from the different types of software, so you mentioned, you know, Capture One, you've got Adobe Bridge, you've got Adobe Lightroom, you've got Adobe Photoshop. So that's probably the main four things that you would use. So what do you like most about the Adobe suite, and what do you dislike?
I have a real love-hate relationship with Bridge.
Okay. I never use it.
It's like you can do the work in Capture Pro as well that you can do in Bridge, but the fact that Bridge works in tandem with Photoshop, it's very helpful. It's great software, but it eats up your computer memory. Like, you know, you constantly have to purge cache files in the cache system. I just hate it. I love it, but I hate it. It just drives me mad. And they constantly popping up. Would you recommend this to a friend? I always go, no, 0. Do not show me this box again. I'm like,
and they keep asking for feedback. Yeah, tell us how bad we are this week, Dylan. We're still bad.
It's good. It's good software. It's like anything, you know. When it's not working or it's not going your way, you're cursing it. But most of the time, like for what I need it for, it does the job. I'm able to view my files. I'm able to check the focus on them. I'm able to mark them. I'm able to put keywords in if I want.
And do you use meta tags and stuff like that as well?
The odd time, I don't really use them. I like if I'm working on a project for websites or e-commerce, it's a good facility, and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that you should do,
Mm.
but I don't. It's like naming layers in Photoshop. You should name every single layer that you work on in
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop,
Mm-hmm.
but it's easy not to do it as well
Mm-hmm.
because
So, do you find that, like, you might have an image that could be an absolutely killer image, but there was something that was missing, and you say, you know what, no, I'm going to dedicate the time to do this because I know it could be a killer image. So I presume there's some image that you go, this is like a passion project. I want this to be for what I can visualize it can be, and you'll go over your 15 minutes from that point because you just don't want it to be 99% complete because that one little extra bit is going to make a
yeah,
huge
yeah.
difference. But does the
You get that all the
does
you get that all the time.
but does the client even recognize that though? Because you're right in the detail. I mean, you're zooming in there and you're looking at pixels or whatever it may be, and you're going, okay, that's not just quite right. I want to get it right. But the client will never know that. But it's the perfectionist that's within all of us. I think that your output, you want it to be as good as it can be. So yeah, the 15-minute rule I think is probably a good guide, but I'm sure there are many examples
Yeah.
where you spent more time on it.
You have to like you can't leave things a certain way. It's like smoothing cement. You could spend all day smoothing it, trying to get it right. Like, you know what I mean? If you have the time, you'll sit there and you'll do it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time with post production, you actually need to step away from the project and look at it the next day.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'd often do if I'm working on something.
Let it cook.
I'll leave it and then I'll come back to it tomorrow and I'll go, oh, actually I never saw that, because you can get so focused on certain things or certain elements that you'll miss other things. Like I did a job it was last year, the start of last year, even the year before, for myself and Barry were out in TGI Fridays, and they did like the 12 drinks of Christmas.
Okay.
So they were making cocktails. And they're really cool cocktails.
You had to drink them, I presume, when you were all finished, did you?
I wish. They actually go to shit after about 10 minutes. So like they look absolutely awful after a couple of minutes. Everything starts to separate. But like it was almost set up like a cityscape, with
nice.
all the different glasses and stuff like that. Like, and there's a lot of work because you gotta cut out all those different elements.
Okay.
And no matter what you do, the camera's gonna move. Okay, so like we have it set up. You've got barman coming by, like, so there's always going to be little aspects that you kind of miss. So I always try to get people to look over it for me as well. I'd be like, would you zoom in there and scoot around that image and have a look and see if you can see anything? Because I'm going blind looking at the thing.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, there's here, and here. So I'll add a layer in where people can write notes down for me as well, because you really it's that hunter-gatherer type thing. The way your wife's like, or your girlfriend or your partner or whoever is like, oh, would you get that peanut butter out of the cupboard? Like, what are you talking about? There's no peanut butter in there. And you're looking in the press for like 15 minutes and it closes. Like, I don't know what she's talking about. And then she opens the press. She goes, it's right here. It's like, I'm like, hunter-gatherer,
Yeah.
Men can see things really far away. We're not good at things that are right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it.
Yeah, and you know what? You're dead right too. I think it even goes to, even from my own point of view as an amateur photographer. I mean, if I'm doing an edit on an image, I'll always let it cook. I'll never, go, okay, I've taken it today, I'm going to process it today, I'm going to publish it today. Never. I mean, from my own point of view, I might take my photographs and it might be 2 weeks before I even go looking at them again. But even when I look at them again, I will never finish a process in one day, because you become colorblind. You also look at it and kind of go, that looks great. That edit looks savage. And you look back the following day and you go, Jesus, what was I thinking, man? I mean, that's completely off, because your eyes will adjust to normality.
That happens all the time.
Yeah. And
I love going back over images as well. Like, because you always see things that you never saw the first time around. It's such a sweet feeling. It's like, what the hell? Where's that image been? Oh my God, I never noticed that on the day.
Yeah.
I got to do something with that.
Yeah. Or the flip side is that you find something, you go, Jesus, what did I think when I edited that one? We see the progress, I suppose. With progress comes with practice.
Yeah, that's part of the journey, though. That's part of the fun,
Yeah.
If you don't make the mistakes, you're never going to learn.
Absolutely. We kind of alluded there a moment ago as well, Dylan, about the different projects that you worked on. I mean, have you got a favorite project out of everything that you've worked on in the last 7 years? Have you have a favorite project, and why?
I love the fashion editorials, because you can kind of go a little bit nuts on them. And most most jobs have structure. They need to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be this. It has to be that. That's what's expected. That's what the client is paying for. So, when it comes to fashion editorials, everybody gets to throw their bit of creativity into the project, and that for me, that's I love that. So there's a couple that I've worked on over the years. I should probably send you a few. There's one that we did for Tatler magazine in what used to be John Player building
Mm-hmm.
off the South Circular Road.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a big abandoned warehouse where they used to make cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
But we got like a giant whale skull in that was like had bits of like silver on it, and then like giant skulls and like big like Salvador Dali melting clocks, and
Wow.
then like we got like LED panels. So Chalk Solis was a company that we used to get lighting off, and we still do actually. They were like one of the major lighting hire firms in Dublin. Well, they're Wicklow based, so they like they got loads of cool things like ARRI skylights and HMIs and like LED panels, and so we got these like LED panels, and like the model is holding it up to her face, and she's like styled up to the nines, like it's just really cool, and there's all this stuff going on in the background, and we had like smoke machines, and it's just really good fun, because like the shots there and the shot looks good, but you can go nuts on the color, and you can go nuts on the grade, and you can actually put your own personality into it, which is that's my favorite part of photo editing as well.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose, and again, having your own personal touch, because otherwise you just be pigeonholed into creating something. And I mean, not to.
Well, a lot of the time we get overlooked, like, because the photographer at the end of the day gets the credit for the shot. So like if you're working on your own stuff, that's grand. But if you're working for somebody else,
yeah.
Now they always do credit you when they post stuff on social media, or if it's in magazines to try and get a credit for post production. But at the end, most of the time, you're under the radar.
Yeah, you're the background that all the wheels that make the whole thing come together for the final output. Yeah.
But and in my opinion, we have a fairly large input into what happens as well. Like it's a lot of our skill goes into actually producing it, especially when it comes to portraits. Like some of the portrait stuff that you worked on is just you're like you're just adding things that weren't there to begin with, and you're just you're putting things that how to do onto that image. Now the foundation's there, the image is amazing, the light is really cool, but there's certain elements of post production that will just lift it again. It's just bringing up that other extra little bit.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And that brings me, I suppose, to the final question actually that I have in this part of the show is, have you a project coming up that you're looking forward to? Is there something that's on the radar, mid, long term, or whichever it may be? But if you got something that you're really looking forward to working on?
Short answer is no.
Okay.
Everything has changed this year, Darren.
Yeah.
There's nothing like we used to do. 2, maybe 3 shoots a week, and that's I haven't been working really at all.
Yeah.
Not even normal. I've had like very few jobs come in, and half the stuff I've talked about tonight I've done for free, or it's been editorial stuff, so you're not getting paid for it. You're just doing it just to actually get out there and do stuff. So yeah,
you're looking forward to normality coming back, so are you looking forward to kind of getting something that you can get your teeth stuck into again, and be creative,
and a bit of structure as well. It's like I used to love going into the studio every day and mixing with people and meeting people, and that's just not happening now. Like if something does come up, which is very, very not very often at the moment, you're working from home, and I find in a creative environment, of course you can do it on your own and you can work at home. But if you're working with other people that are on the same wavelength and doing the same thing as you, you know what I mean? You're having a bit of crack. You're able to discuss things and go, hey, what do you think about this, or what do you reckon on that? And you can still do that stuff over Zoom and text things, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
No. Yeah, it's a hive mind, and the hive mind is very, very powerful because everybody has a live input. I mean, everybody is kind of working differently over the last year in the whole office environment as well. Exactly as you say, like even from my own point of view, if I've got a question for my own main job, in the past, I'd just get up off my seat and I'd walk into the office next door and go, listen, what do you think of this? Whereas now it's completely different. Because I can do it via Zoom, or I can, pick up the phone, or I might have to say, okay, I'd have to, schedule a meeting here. Okay, next Friday at 4:00. Forget it, 4:00. The day is done. But I just want a very,
Yeah.
very quick answer. So, there's a huge benefit to having people around you, because you can bounce ideas off. You can go, what you think of this, and on the fly, someone go, "Oh, I like that, but have you thought of this?" "Oh, geez, I haven't."
Yeah.
And that's where I
Yeah.
think the people power comes into it, because as you said a number of times, it's not just one person that's involved in the project; it's a number of people that are collectively giving input, which affects the output at the very, very end of that. Yeah. So no, Dylan, that was a fascinating insight, I suppose, into how you would go about your day, what you do from the editing point of view, and again, some of the projects that you've worked on as well. So thanks for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a final break. I have 3 questions that I ask every single guest. And just because you're a friend of mine, I'm not going to let you off. So I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions as well. So look, we will be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. You're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Dylan, like I said, I have 3 staple questions. You're not getting away with it, man. I'm going to ask you all 3 as well. So, first question is a funny photography story. I'm sure you've got many, but yeah, give me one.
But this wasn't very funny for me, but it was more embarrassing. But everyone else thought it was funny.
They're the best.
It was a beautiful day in Dublin. I was working. Myself and Barry were working together for the ISPCC. Mm-hmm. Doing some pro bono work for the Shield campaign a couple of years ago, and Jessie J, the singer songwriter, was in Dublin, and she said she would be happy to be part of the campaign. So anyway, it must have been 25 degrees. We were up on the rooftop of the Marker Hotel in Dublin, nice. And Jessie J is there looking cool. She's in these baggy, like high vis type pants, and she just looks amazing. She's a gorgeous looking girl. Mm-hmm. And Barry's snapping away, and I'm on the computer, and I come over to look at something, and he's like, "Would you mind holding this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." It was a polyboard just to reflect a bit of light back in, and I went to kneel down on what I thought was like a puff or a poof, but actually turned out to be a giant cushion. And I went straight through the thing, and I snocked myself and smashed my face off the ground. And I just jumped back up, and I was like, and they're all like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I am so embarrassed right now." And Barry's just like, "You're a fucking idiot, get up." So yeah, it was funny looking back on it, but it was pretty embarrassing at the time. But,
I wonder if she remember it. Yeah, who's that goal there that smacked his face off the ground?
She definitely won't remember me. She's got much bigger and better things going on in her life, I'm sure.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, they're the best stories when it's about embarrassment, because they're not funny at the time, but when you look back on things, absolutely, yeah, it's good. It's a good story. Yeah. Good story.
I'd say if I was on the red chair now, Graham would have dumped me off about 10 minutes ago.
That's okay. Yeah, I'll leave you on. You're all right. I don't have that lever to kick you out, so you're all right. So the next question I have is, what gear do you shoot with? So you've already said to me that you shoot with the Canon 5D Mark IV. So is it that the camera body that you use? What lenses do you use, etc.?
Yeah, it's standard 24-70, 2.4, 2.8. Yeah. So I have a standard 24-70, 2.8. I have a 16-35 and a 70-200 2.8 as well, all L lenses.
Nice.
And then I also have a Mark III backup body, and then for my own personal stuff, I use a Fuji XE3.
Nice.
With a 50mm lens. Sorry, it's a 35mm lens, but it acts as a 50mm because of the crop. So
yeah,
that's kind of my and then I mostly use my iPhone, if I'm honest. The camera on the iPhone 12 is amazing. And the wide angle with the kids low down, like just splashing in puddles and stuff, is just phenomenal. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm very similar to that as well. I've said it a number of times. I know how to take a shot now with the camera, but by the time the moment comes, I'm gone. I haven't got the camera, I haven't got the lens on, everything else. The phone is just in the pocket.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. It's like the cameras are great, but they're just like too expensive, too cumbersome. Like you sling that little Fuji around on your back, and then you turn around and it just cracks one of the kids in the head. Or it's like I love it, but do you know what it's best for when you're out with older family members? If you're in the pub or something, or it's someone's birthday and you're shooting on a really high ISO
Mm-hmm.
and like a nice shallow depth of field. It's amazing for black and white portraits. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
The Fuji is. That's when I'm in my element with it. But 99% of the time, I use my iPhone for snapping. Half the stuff on my Instagram account is on my iPhone.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And the final question I have is a VSP. Stands for Very Solid Product. Product you put your name to if you could. You won't leave home without it. What is it?
Recently, it's a Samsung T5 SSD portable hard drive. Is my it just makes everything much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Really light, reliable, really super fast, and I love it as a bit of kit. Like I could name card readers, or I could name cameras or tripods, whatever, but everything goes on that hard drive.
Yeah, and it's so light, it's so portable, it's so reliable as well because it's SSD. So yeah, no, that's a good VSP. So it's the Dylan Madden SSD. Yeah, that's the new name for it.
The 1 terabyte Dylan Madden SSD. No, it's a great bit of kit, and like if you're shooting videos or something, you can just attach it to your camera and just stick it on top of your hot shoe with a bit of sticky tape or something. It's like it's the same size as a credit card. It's a lot thicker than a credit card, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And they're very good value as well.
Yeah,
highly recommend one.
I like it. Yeah, good one. So yeah, Dylan, we're almost done, man. The only final things for me to ask you, I suppose, really is what's next for you. So what's coming up next? What are you looking forward to? What are you doing next? You mentioned earlier about the different things that you're doing with web and such like that. So yeah, what's up next?
Yeah, I'm really trying to promote my web business. So as I said, I do web development, e-commerce websites and regular websites, but like I kind of specialize now in stock integration as well.
Okay.
So integrating people's e-commerce site with their in-store EPOS systems, and then the thing about it is I can do everything. So I make the website. I've got a background in design. Mm-hmm. So I know how to make them look nice. I shoot all the stuff for the websites as well. I've got a background in obviously taking pictures, and then I've also got a background in making the pictures look nice with my post-production. So I've just come up with the idea, or just thought, like, why not just encompass everything into one single package where you can get your website made, I can do your integration, I can do all your pictures for you, and I can offer you a really high-end product. So before the shit hit the fan with COVID, you can have a look at can.ie, which is the last one that I actually did.
Okay.
Which is a really nice website, really nice people to work with, and again, it's fully integrated with their in-store system, and I shot 90% of the stuff on there.
Nice.
So yeah, it's really cool, really nice stuff to work on as well.
Yeah, nice,
because it's highly creative, because you're bringing it to life from nothing, which is something that I really love. So like, it's basically, you've got all the raw elements there, and you actually put together something that is functional, looks nice, and is a leg or an arm to someone else's business. It just gives them a leg up to actually generate more money, which is really nice as well. So
absolutely,
onwards and upwards with that.
Yeah, it's a full 360, I suppose, really, like from concept, to creation, to images, to design, to actual making it, putting in the e-commerce, one-stop shop effectively, where that if somebody's looking for it, they're not dealing with a big agency and multitude of people that can get different visions. You can have everything all encompassing in one. So no, look, it's really, really good. And I mean, like I said, people will be able to look at your work. Actually, how can people see your work, and how can people reach out and make contact with you?
Instagram is fairly straightforward for most people. So my handle on Instagram is Dylan_Madden80. It's DYLAN_Madden MADDEN 80.
Okay.
Alternatively, I can be found at dylanmadden.ie, and there you'll be able to find my web development projects as well as my photography stuff as well. So
savage.
Yeah, hit me up on either platform. So I'd be happy to chat to anybody.
Brilliant. Dylan, thanks a million, man. I really enjoyed the insight into your photography journey. And again, like I say, the whole retouching side of things is fascinating for me, because the work that work I've seen you output is incredible. So yeah, look, thanks a million for coming on to the Irish Photography Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. You've survived it anyway with me, yeah?
Thanks, I really do appreciate you having me on, Darren. It's great to see you again. Actually, it's been a while. So yeah, thank you everybody, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me. I hope I didn't waffle on too much.
No, you didn't. You didn't. All right, listen, look, thanks a million, Dylan, and from me in Cork to you in Dublin, until I eventually meet you in the flesh. Shlán go fóill.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.